Awesome. All right. Hello, welcome everybody. Monica at Empower Your Life, Empower Your Health TV. At Empower TV, we connect you with health and wellness resources so that you can empower yourself and create the life you want and the life you love. Okay, so let's go. And I want to say I'm very grateful for everybody's time today, and I promise we will deliver some interesting insights and help for you if you're looking to improve your health and find new answers for questions that you may have. And our very honored guest today is Lori Zeltwanger. She is a licensed physical therapist, best-selling author, and owner of Advanced Release Therapy in Sedona, Arizona. She specializes in pain release and women's health. Lori's focus is in treating and teaching from the feminine perspective. And she has mastered the ability to assess and listen to your body's needs during each treatment. She has created and taught internationally a range of seminars and has instructed thousands of therapists on the path to becoming compassionate and empowered practitioners in their field of expertise. Lori also led retreats, facilitating each person to the path of a life free of pain. Lori as well won an award for her chapter on pelvic health in the best-selling book Answering the Call. So that's a very impressive short resume. And but on a personal note, I wanted to say I met Lori well several years ago, if not many years ago, and originally as a patient. Um, and also I participated in her seminars as a student, and her impact on my life and my health was um, really profound, and teaching me especially to listen to my own body and become more empowered in how I treat myself and how I am able to create a healthier lifestyle, but also as a therapist with my patients, treat them as partners and ask questions, be able to dialogue and um, invite them to be active participants. So Lori is a master of creating that space of invitation and connection and deep communication. So I'm very grateful for her to be here. Excited to hear from what she's going to tell us. And welcome, Lori. How are you doing this
Oh,
afternoon?
thank you. That was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful little intro. I appreciate that.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I really wanted to acknowledge that your title of your show is about empowering, and you said
Yay.
that empowering is something that we do. So I really want to emphasize that whole empowerment.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're in the same vibe on that, right? To help.
Yes.
We all have that power to heal ourselves. We don't need outside controlling sources, right? So
Yes.
wonderful. So, is there anything you want to share just to start with, or you want me to start asking questions?
Um, well, I'm open to whatever question you may have.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like from your intro, I'll just add that, you're a very easy patient to work with because you do believe in the power within our own
Thank
bodies,
you.
and you know how to listen to your own body. And that's really, the power is in each of us, the healing power. And
Yeah.
as you're also a therapist, an amazing therapist, so as there's a development of the therapist to be able to facilitate and encourage and support that, but it still is about each of our own abilities to listen internally to
Mm-hmm.
what our own body wisdom has to offer us.
Yes, thank you so much. And it takes, and then we get help, right, to actually draw that power from ourselves. And I think that's a part of my approach, and also what I want to bring on this show to people. But thank you, Laurie. It was a very nice response. So I would like to start just asking you about your background and whatever you would like to share from. I know that's probably a very long story, but I would like to ask in particular, like, what motivated you to focus on women's health and on pelvic health issues?
Okay, yes, that's actually. So I'm going to first start out. So I graduated from physical therapy school, and I was out in the
Mm-hmm.
field working. I had finished a year underneath somebody else, and then I went and I was the only therapist in my department, and I felt really inadequate as a therapist to offer people something to help with their pain release, to offer some transformation. I was like, what I learned in school felt like it just wasn't really enough. And about that same time, I was also running for exercise, and I had to stop running because of knee pain.
Right.
And it got to the point, and I was applying all the things, all the traditional physical therapy things that I'd learned in school, and it was not making a difference. And about this time, one of my professors from school suggested that I do some myofascial release training. So it started with myofascial release training. When I went to that seminar, my knee was hurting to the point where I couldn't go alternatively up and down steps. I had to go one step at a time and then pull my leg up one step at a time. I'm pretty young when I first started, so I'm like, okay, that's not working. By the end of the second day of this seminar, nobody's treating my knee. Nobody's treating me for knee pain, but as you know, we're all partnering with each other, practicing techniques on each other. And at the end of that second day, I was running up the steps at this hotel without thinking about it. And all of a sudden, I was like, I did not have any knee pain. So that was a huge light bulb. And then I continued pursuing the myofascial release training. So in the myofascial release training, there's an aspect where we talk about fascia being down to the cellular level. So it connects all of the cells of our body together. There's even some fascial elements within the cell. And so it's natural that the pelvic region also carries a huge amount of fascia. And it seems to be an area that is often looked over a little bit because of the nature of the pelvis as a private aspect to each of our lives, our bodies and our lives. So about this time, I'm in the myofascial release training. I'm learning about the fascia going to all places of the body, the pelvic aspect also. And I'm in a car accident. And I ended up with a lot of shoulder blade and neck pain from that car accident. And I would get treated when I could. And the work was definitely beneficial and helping me. But it seems like because I'm also using my hands in my work, the pain kept returning. It was kind of a nagging ache. And there were days I remember going to work, working with people in pain and thinking, I'm in just as much pain or more than you are. So it was this time that I received some internal myofascial release to my pelvic region. So we went in vaginally, internally, and I felt a reproduction of the shoulder blade, the nagging, aching shoulder blade pain that I was experiencing. And it was after that session that my pain went away permanently. And so that really lit me up to a place where I said, it's really connected to every other place in the body. So I found my way into women's pelvic health, personal experience, but not because I was having pelvic pain, but I was having shoulder blade and neck pain. And it was the internal pelvic release that actually made a difference in my neck and shoulder blade pain.
Wow.
So I just knew that this is a hugely important and valuable aspect to offer people, whether they're having pelvic pain problems or other places in their body.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, I think the best therapists always come from their own personal perspective because you have to feel it to know what's happening and have that
Yes,
direct
especially with this
connection,
work.
right? Yeah,
Yes,
especially with
especially
this
with
work.
this work.
Exactly.
Yes.
And especially pelvic work, because why would you want anybody to do this for you if you
Exactly.
can't connect the dots,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. And so you talk a lot about the feminine perspective, and I really wanted to bring this to our listeners. Maybe talk about this whole topic of like how do you define that, and how does that weave into the pelvic work that you do and women's health work that you do.
Okay, yeah, that's a beautiful question. So when I talk about coming from the feminine perspective, I'm referring mostly to the aspect where the feminine energy, so we're talking about feminine and masculine energies that we all have within us. We all have both within us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not male and female, it's feminine and masculine energies. And the feminine energies are those of receptivity and feeling what's happening versus thinking what's happening or giving. And also this listening element versus like a structured, you do this and then you do this and then you do this, which would be more the masculine energy. Both are highly important and both are necessary. But when we emphasize the feminine, because really our world is kind of run still on the masculine energy of telling people what to do, creating the structure, doing it,
Yeah.
rather than just
Mm-hmm.
listening and allowing and letting the beingness of each of us kind of emerge and come forth. And I found that when we can really settle down into feeling what's happening within our bodies, that's where the healing really occurs. And there's a
Mm.
natural healing wisdom that shows up to provide insight and to provide guidance. And so it's that aspect where the body then starts to talk and tell us what it wants and what it needs
Mm.
as far as what it to heal, to
Mm-hmm.
heal any kind of pain, problems, illness, restriction, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where all this, listening and dialoguing and helping clients to actually become active listeners of their own body. I think that's what it weaves into your practice, right?
I
Um,
think
as
I think
as
that our
mm-hmm.
own bodies hold the answers for us, and it's a matter of finding that. They're not typing them out on a text.
Yes. Hey, I'm having a neck pain right now.
Right. So it's a as you
Yeah.
know, it's a process of learning how to
Mhm.
listen to our bodies and
Yes.
also receiving. Really, I almost feel it as a type of it's receiving our own energy back into connection with our own physical body.
Right.
And I think that
Mm-hmm.
in most of our healthcare today, we think of it as, the brain operating the body.
Mm-hmm.
So it's head down to the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we forget that really the body is sending more signals up to the brain than the brain sending to the body. And so there's got to be a place in healthcare where we're really listening to all those messages that are coming up from the body because
Yeah.
when we're the patient, that's what's affecting us. It's all those
Mm-hmm.
signals from the body.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, how do you bring this to your clients? How do you teach them? Because I think a lot, most of us, we come from this culture of exactly like healthcare, where you are treated as a um, sort of a subject, and you are taught, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do, and
Mhm,
like, don't do this, and your pain is because of that, take that pill. So it's very objectifying, and
mhm,
there is really no whatsoever. There is really no education on how to feel our body, how to feel what we really experience. It's sort of like a very odd concept for I think most of us
mhm.
in our society still. So how do you
Yes, I
approach? I
do.
mean, how do you even introduce people to that when
Well,
they
I
come
do
into
think,
your practice?
yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I do think there's an element where there is a learning. It's like a learning process,
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Right.
some of it is through experience. So I think our touch as the therapist helps connect them to their body. And then there's a learning about if they're coming because of pain, it's like learning that pain is not just some annoying nuisance that we're all trying to get
Mm-hmm.
rid of,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
really the mentality we all approach it with, but it's actually part of our innate guidance system. And we're feeling pain because it's trying to get our attention and it's trying to communicate with us and deliver a
Yeah.
message. So it starts with kind of just educating educating them on that maybe shift in concept. And then it's kind of teaching them how to feel. And there are different really simple techniques, like just, can you feel this pressure I'm applying, or can you feel this traction stretch that I'm applying? And and then we go from there, because sometimes our only way to feel our body is through pain. And so it's about being
Yes.
able to feel what's underneath the pain. What are all the sensations, or perhaps the emotions, or maybe even the consciousness, the thoughts of belief systems of the consciousness that are actually underneath that pain. And that's the healing message that's attempting to guide us.
Right. It's sort of like opening. So here, the main sensation that we are used to is pain, but then there's this incredible breadth and diversity of things that we actually can feel in our body. And it's very detailed sometimes, very rich, right? And it's almost, once you step into that, like you're opening yourself to this amazing universe where you can start feeling everything that's happening and just letting it guide you, right?
That's a beautiful way to say it, is opening to this other universe that actually exists all the time. It's
Right.
there. We just aren't trained how to tune into it.
And maybe a little scared sometimes, I think, to go into it because you
Yes,
don't
I
know what
think
you're
so
going to
too.
discover. Yeah.
Yes. So I think, yeah. So like what you're saying is that, we as the therapists, when we've been through it ourselves, and we understand that maybe the first step is some fear of the unknown of what's
Yeah.
there, but also really creating that safe space for each person, because we know, we've been through it, that the other side of what might be scary, or what might be sad, or what might be just a different way of approaching something, that there is this amazingly beautiful gem within that. And that it's
Wow.
okay to give ourselves
Yes.
permission to feel the fear, or maybe feel the rage that we are holding inside of our bodies, that's draining our life force, because we think we're not allowed to feel that strong of an
Yep.
emotion, or that's just an example, but really creating that space to explore that universe of the unknown.
Yes, thank you for bringing this. I mean, I love that our conversation sort of going into more the aspect of consciousness and feeling and going deeper into the body, because so much therapy is still, unfortunately, about prescribed, routines and do this, do that. So that one of the things I want to do here is actually open those conversations and have as many voices actually telling us how we understand consciousness, how we bring consciousness into the realm of healing and even physical therapy. You being a physical therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, well, thanks for going that way. And I'm curious though, to hear more about what you're doing these days and how the pelvic work and the pelvic health is playing into your work and your offerings. That is just a note, this is something that I really would like to bring to the listeners as well, start inquiring about what pelvic health is. And like Lori was mentioning this or explaining through her own story, pelvis is such a crucial place in our body, such a crucial area in our body, and that influences everything. And so, can you tell us more about how you're bringing that awareness out in the public these days?
Yes. So there's been a real push in the past. I don't know if push is the right word, but an
Mm-hmm.
awakening or an awareness in the past 10, 20 years of pelvic health.
Right.
And most of the time, it is related more to problems: pelvic pain,
Mm-hmm.
incontinence, which is the leakage or frequency of urination, um, maybe many sexual traumas, or issues that might happen during or post birthing. Scar tissue is often created from C sections or from episiotomies or just ripping and tearing in the birth process. Prolapse is when our bladder or uterus starts dropping down into the vaginal cavity, creates a lot of distress for many women. So there's a lot of specific pelvic issues that is considered women's pelvic health. But again, kind of like my story, I like to also bring the awareness that treating and being aware of our pelvic health can have an effect and an influence on just our whole life experience and our whole health. You know, for me, it was neck and shoulder blade. It could be headaches. I think a lot of migraines problems are actually originating in the pelvic tissue. And if people would start to get their pelvis treated, that it would help contribute to healing or at least reducing the headache issues that we're having. I like to say a lot of times that, you know, we're pretty conditioned to have our pelvic region, our vaginal region examined, and we're encouraged to do that on a daily basis. It's natural for us to consider having it played with. It sometimes is traumatized, that aspect of playing with it, including even if we fall on our butt or tailbone, that's a trauma to the pelvic region. But we are not encouraged or explained how to get it treated. And it's tissue, like everywhere else in our body. It's tissue that needs to be addressed and needs to be treated. So I attempt to bring that awareness to my patients that are coming to see me. And then I'm also teaching to other therapists about how to approach this subject and what we can do about it to treat it. So I do think it is vastly important whether you're having specific pelvic problems. And pelvic health also can be low back pain, hip pain, all of these areas also that are related there. I mean, I had a patient who was very young and fell down the steps and ended up with back pain. But really, when we explored treatment, and she went through a whole horrific seeking healing for her back pain, and what it really boiled down to was her tailbone got jammed up in the fall down the steps. And so being able to reach into the tailbone area intravaginally is also a significantly powerful way to help reduce symptoms. You know, the tailbone is kind of the end of our spinal cord, which is part of our central nervous system. So there's just so much aspects that this area holds, and it's just necessary. You know, the word sacrum is the lowest bone in our back. And then, of course, the tailbone, the coccyx, comes off of that. But the Latin meaning of the word sacrum is sacred bone. So this is a very sacred space for us to explore. And working with it externally with external techniques, and actually, like we were speaking earlier, just bringing our awareness, our breath and our awareness into the pelvic region is so key and so important, and something that everyone listening can do on their own, wherever they are, sitting at a stoplight in traffic. You can just practice feeling into your pelvis and seeing if your breath can softly sink down into your pelvis. And the more each of us are able to do that, to live from this place within our center of our being, the more powerful and just grounded and connected, I believe, that we can feel within our own self. And then, of course, that carries over to any of our interactions with others.
Wow, it's a beautiful way of talking about that. I just love that image of actually being able to live from that sacred space rather than, you know, the head.
Rather than the talking head. And even though, you know, like, yeah, especially now, the era of Zoom, right? We're all talking heads.
Yes, we're just talking heads. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, so we'll have to bring it down, feel down into our pelvis, our
Mhm.
hips, our low back. All of this is a part
Yeah.
of women's health. It's not just vaginally, it's all of that whole area is interrelated.
Hmm. And even in the era of Zoom, I mean, we are on the computers, we can still breathe into our pelvis. We can still
Yes,
be connected. It doesn't mean that we have to be disconnected from our body just because we're online. I
exactly.
think that's an important thing to remember because I see a lot of clients who now spend basically the entire day on the computer, and it,
Mhm.
it does not have a very good influence on their lives, as you know. And I love that image, that wherever we are, it doesn't matter in public or not, we can still connect through
Mm.
breathing or through just feeling the sensations in what's happening in our body. And I think also pelvis, as being that center point of our body, is the place where you can ground yourself. So it's
Mhm.
it's almost like it's easier to ground yourself in the pelvis than anywhere else, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And for
Mm-hmm.
women, we actually do tend to ground when we think of grounding and roots. I mean, when I think of grounding, I do think of connection, not just the typical thought pattern of that is connecting to the ground or the earth underneath
Mm-hmm.
us. I think of it as connecting to our bodies. Our physical bodies are part of the ground, really.
Mm-hmm.
So being inside of our own bodies, living life from inside of our own bodies. And then, of course, also on the ground. And it's about what's happening, right in the here and now in our own
Mm-hmm.
environments. And women actually tend to ground more through our pelvis, whereas men tend to do it more through their legs. It's kind of an
Mm-hmm.
interesting
Interesting.
consideration. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
an interesting consideration. And the other
It
thing I
is.
think that
Mm-hmm.
is really very powerful to mention about pelvic health is that the pelvic region is an area where we tend to root, and it is considered our first chakra for anybody that also understands energy medicine. And the first chakra um, belief constructs all surround safety, security, and survival. And really, that's been up the past year for
Mm-hmm.
all of us to consider, what is safety and our own survival, and not just life or death survival, but also to think about it in terms of maybe it's a relationship that you're wondering about how is it going to survive,
Mm. Yeah.
or maybe it's your financial situation that you're wondering how is that
Mm-hmm.
going to survive, or there's many different ways of considering survival or security or safety, those elements that aren't always just about the actual physical life and death.
Mm-hmm.
So just bringing awareness to, okay, a lot of those considerations or those emotions surrounding those concepts actually live and exist in our pelvic region. And so being able to really listen to that whole area or receive treatment in that area is, I believe, vastly important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems to me like, the advice would be to, if you are, um, for the listeners, if you are a person that's guided to take care of your health and to be healthy and empowered in your body, well, get curious about the pelvis. Ask your therapist. Ask for a therapist who can treat it and who look for those who can and who know how to do it. Um, because it, like Lori was saying, it doesn't have to be that you have pain in that area. Let's kind of leave the pain aside and just ask, how can I have a more fulfilled, happier life? And, can I bring the rest of my body? Can I bring those areas into the treatment room, and can I bring it up into light? So connecting, right? So just getting curious, no matter where you're coming from. Yeah, it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it also has an element of our own sense of self and then our own sexuality as
yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we connect with another? And
Yes.
it's a, it's an intimate area for sure. And so you definitely want to find your way into being comfortable with that, but also finding a
Mm-hmm.
practitioner or therapist who you feel safe with as well to explore that area.
Yes. And so, can you tell us more about your projects these days? I know that you are both teaching patients and therapists about the pelvis, and you are going online as well as in person. So, I would just love to hear about how you bring in this and what opportunities there are, for people who would like to explore further.
Okay, sure. Um, so yes, I am co-leading a workshop. We're calling it Pelvic Floor Exposed because, well, we
Mm-hmm.
do go inside internally
Yeah.
the pelvic floor area,
Mm-hmm.
but also because we want to expose more awareness of the value of having this area treated, and also to expose some myths like, the old way of thinking is that, oh, the only treatment for pelvic health is doing lots of Kegel exercises, so
Mm-hmm.
squeezing your pelvic floor repetitively, and that is a myth. So that's not really a whole treatment program. And in fact, sometimes the pelvic floor, or frequently, I will say, the pelvic floor area is not, the problems are not just that it's weak and we need to strengthen it. So doing tons of Kegels all day, but it's that it's actually constricted and restricted, and it's tight and short. And so it has an inability to actually relax and release and reach its full range of motion. So a lot of the aspect is about learning how to relax and release our pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like exposing some of those myths as well, and doing a workshop for practitioners so that they can learn how to treat others. Also, bringing into the picture of men's health, because men also have a pelvis and they have a pelvic
Mm-hmm.
floor, which
Mm-hmm.
is a grouping of muscles in the pelvic region, and really need. I mean, it'd be so much beneficial for all of us if we allow some focus and some integration. Uh, if men would also pay attention to this area as well, it's not just for women. It's all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We all have pelvises, and to be able to drop into this sacred space is valuable for all of humanity, really. And so we're also introducing this year a class on that aspect. And we're bringing it online because it's harder for people to travel now, and it
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the way that we're going. And so it's also important to get the word out there more and more. My plan is, the workshop is coming up, and my plan is to then package a bundle for people to be able to learn about it, not just therapists, but all of
Mm-hmm.
us to be able to learn about
Yeah.
what we can do for ourselves. And just the more we know, if we're having any of these
Mm-hmm.
problems, what we can do to help ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
or how to seek out a therapist that can help us with some of
Yeah.
these specific problems that, are frequent. They're actually
Mm-hmm.
frequent with people, and it's not an area that people often want to talk about. So it's really
Yeah.
great that you're bringing it out there for the awareness to spread.
Yeah, thank you. And also what comes to mind is actually helping people find words to talk about it. Because
Mm.
maybe, as a patient, you may kind of have an inkling or an idea that something's going on, but you're not even sure how to ask for it, and you're not even sure what words to use, and how to describe what you're feeling. And I think that aspect of communication, it seems like you are also teaching that to the patients in your courses. How can I connect? How can I talk about it? How can I share about that? How to find a therapist and how to understand what's going on in my body on my own.
Yes, and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't mention, I think it's also valuable to bring up. So we talked a little bit about the word incontinence and how that's a type
Mm-hmm.
of urinary well, it's a loss
Mm-hmm.
of our ability to control in the
Mm-hmm.
sphincter. So it can be urinary or can also be with bowel movements. But constipation, all of our digestive issues,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
constipation, or we all have digestive. We don't all. Many people have
Many.
digestive issues,
Most.
and it's
Yeah.
also an area that is considered pelvic health. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
working with all of those organs in and around our abdominal and pelvic region. I think it's important to address that. We don't think about the relationship between maybe our digestive or our elimination elements that are daily, they're every day for us,
Mm-hmm.
and how that might relate to what's happening in our bodies. So there is a connection, right, to what's going on in our
Yeah.
bodies, in our life, and then maybe the symptoms or problems that we might be experiencing as well.
Yeah, so opening yourself to that bigger picture, it's like, well, I'm having this symptom. It doesn't mean that I just have to take a pill. It actually ask yourself, where is it connecting? Try some breathing or some, just imagining the internal workings of your body. And where do you see that one thing is connecting to another? Where do you see your pain going into? Where it may be coming from? Because I think we have this incredible power as human beings to actually be able to connect with our bodies. We're just not taught, or maybe we're just not told that it's possible, you know? So I really appreciate that your amazing work actually telling people, hey, this is completely possible to speak and talk with your body and dialogue with yourself and um, find out so much more about what's going on internally and how you can help yourself. I think that's immense, it's really what we need
Yes, and
in my
even like you're
perspective.
saying, yeah, even like you're saying, it's great to have a therapist who can support you in learning all
Hmm.
of that,
Yeah.
but also to have a therapist, like not just going to the therapist thinking that the therapist is going to
Yeah, tell you.
release your
Right.
restrictions and take your pain away, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
like there's a part where we have to show up as the patient also and listen
Hmm.
in, just as you were saying.
Hmm. We have to. I mean, there's no choice because otherwise it's just not gonna work. There's no magic pill or magic technique that will fix things for anybody.
Well,
Um,
that's what power is. The power is in
but
really finding that within our own self and listening to what our own body has to say. I can't emphasize that enough.
yeah, and just remembering that yes, you have it. Everybody does. It's just a
Mhm.
natural element of what a human being is, and just and a little help is always important. And educationally, I think I really appreciate that you took your practice into more of a educational angle or area because it almost like that becomes more important now than just being a therapist versus a patient, right?
Mm.
Because
Mhm.
education is really a bigger picture of where, in my opinion, where things are going. And so I was wondering, like, where do you see things going in terms of health and well, now we call it alternative health, but I think that it's not going to be alternative anymore. It's going to be the mainstream, hopefully, in the future, that we actually are listening and are treating each other as partners and not as a patient therapist kind of situation. Um, so I wonder, where's your vision taking you when you look into the future about that,
Well,
where it
you've just
unfolds?
created an ideal aspect. So, ideally, if it's heading in that direction, I really hope so. I really hope that that's what's happening. I mean, that's a whole nother
We'll
topic,
see.
really.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what is the world attempting to get us to think about our own health is, I would say, not the way real health happens.
No,
So,
no. Well, that's why we're talking about that. That's why we need to bring those conversations out. And, that's why I'm here. And but I want to appreciate just the way you are bringing the words into all those concepts. It's really profound and a very illuminating. I think that just having the language and being able to talk about this kind of approach to health and healing, being able to talk about what pelvic health is, what feminine perspective is, it takes courage to bring those words out. So I really want to appreciate you for that. That's it's a very powerful thing and very helpful. I know so many people. Um, so
Well, thank you.
is
I just
there?
want to say
Yeah.
that it's so natural. It's just so natural because it's
Exactly.
just,
Yeah.
it's like that's how I've moved through so much of my things, is really listening to what does it have to say to me. It's just such a nicer way to live.
Yeah.
It's like,
Exactly.
oh,
Right.
I'm experiencing this, and there must be some message that
Uh
it's
huh.
attempting to bring
Yes.
through to me to make a difference in how I'm operating in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, life becomes so much more interesting if you're listening to everything that's happening as a message, right?
Uh, I think
Instead,
life then becomes very artistic.
yes, and you just, it's this beautiful array of different sensations, and they come, it can be pain, but it can also be pleasure, and it can be delight. So I think another thing that I'm learning from you as you are talking is that, we are very conditioned to think about pain constantly. Pain is the main message, so to say, in our society, but um, there's so many different other messages that are coming through, and they can
Mm,
be beautiful and pleasurable and positive,
mm.
coming from our body, in a way that is making our life better. And it doesn't take, any external stuff. It just takes listening and
Well,
being
I also
open.
feel like as you're talking, what comes to me is the aspect of, in our training, a lot of it has been releasing out some of the
Mm-hmm.
old traumas that have affected us. But I also believe so much of this type of body work is about really bringing in more of who we are, more love,
Mm-hmm.
more empowerment, as your channel speaks of, and really finding those maybe even lost parts of ourselves, or just parts of ourselves that haven't quite come through yet. It's like as we
Mm-hmm.
age, we don't need to think about, okay, now our life is partially over and so everything's going downhill, but it's like, what still is to come for us? What still are we wanting to bring into our life, and kind of meeting
Mm-hmm.
that potential?
It's beautiful. Yeah. And speaking about the future vision, I mean, we can source that vision from listening to the body and letting it talk to us. And it's
Yes, I
always
like
going to be
that, but letting this
interesting.
future vision come in. I totally love
Yes.
that.
Because I think we need it, because otherwise we're just going to be, just following blindly the current model of healthcare that's clearly failing and not helping people. Well, I
Actually serves to
appreciate, yeah.
disconnect us a lot, don't you think? It's like there to almost
Yeah.
disconnect us. It puts us in an automaton role and rather than an alive,
Yes, and
you know.
fear as well. Fear because
Mm,
anything that happens can be a sign of some disease or some
mm,
problem that needs to be, cured with medication. And that instills a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and lack of trust in ourselves. So I think
mm,
that um, that's why I really appreciate you and the way you bring in that. I think that you're really mothering those visions. uh you call yourself a mother of this therapy, and it's a beautiful way of thinking about it, because it's sort of mothering, bringing up the vision that may not be fully formed yet. And
yes, beautiful. Embracing it, giving birth to it, allowing it to then grow and develop.
yes, that's beautiful. And I think that would be also a way of describing what feminine way of therapy is
Hmm.
in some ways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like nurturing our growth,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing our
Yes.
development, right? Nurturing our connection
Yes.
ultimately.
Beautiful. I hope you have more books coming.
I do actually. I'm right now,
Yes.
I'm writing one called
Uh-huh.
Pain, Pain, Go Away.
All right.
But
I didn't know
I
that.
also
Oh my
wanted to
goodness.
mention, yes,
Uh-huh.
I know. I'm in the editing process right now, but I also wanted to mention that I do have a chapter that I speak about the pelvic health. That was in a book called Answering the
Mm-hmm.
Call. And I'm happy to make it available to your listeners if they would
Mm-hmm.
somehow like to reach out and receive. Not a whole book, it's just a chapter, so it doesn't take long to read it. But it just again is a reminder and brings the
Nice.
awareness of the power of pelvic health and the necessity
Mm-hmm.
to really not only get it examined, but to get it treated. And our own ability to do that for ourselves as well. So all of the things that we've been talking about.
Beautiful. Yeah, so how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Okay, well, they could reach me. Yeah, okay. They could reach me through my website, which is probably the best. It's myofascialacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
And myofascial is MYOFASCIAL
Okay. Mm-hmm.
academy.com. My email is Lori Zelt@gmail.com, but they can also reach me through the website through an email
Mm-hmm.
contact. So,
Beautiful. And if people contact you, they can receive that chapter and maybe delve deeper into these concepts. And I hope that everybody got very curious about your work. So I will put the website and your contact info in the notes for the YouTube so anybody can find it. Yeah, so what is there something that you would like to maybe conclude with and share with our listeners
well, I think
that's on your mind?
mostly I would like to invite each of you to just take a breath and be aware of your pelvic region as you're breathing and give yourself permission to explore your own relationship with your pelvis, not someone
Hmm.
else's. Although
Hmm.
you can do that too,
Beautiful.
but I'm inviting you to explore your own relationship with your own pelvis.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. I mean, that's it. I really appreciate your uh, everything that you said today, and you brought a lot of inspiration for me. And sort of, I think it helped me now, like get a little more into my body since. So being on the Zoom, being on the computer, it's still sort of a, a little bit uncomfortable, and just reminding ourselves constantly, I can be in my body. I can connect even through breath. It's simple. It's
It
it's
is
really
simple.
powerful. Mm-hmm.
Every step you might take, you might want to just come down from thinking. So we're always thinking, thinking, thinking. Come down from thinking so
Mm-hmm.
much. Feel the pelvis and then feel your feet touching the ground. It's simple, but it's actually requires a lot of reminders of repetition because
Yes.
we're so conditioned the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautiful. Well, Lori, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your time. And I know we'll be in touch as we always are. And so invite everybody, please, to contact Lori, get the chapter of her book, and delve deeper into the pelvis and ask yourself questions and connect. Ask yourself questions. What is my body telling me right now? What is the message coming through? Well, wonderful. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
beautiful. Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.